Well, it took me a while, but now I've gotten around to watching the first episode of Volume 9 of RWBY. And what do I think? I have very little to think about, honestly. Chapter 1 is far from a bad episode, but in the grand totality of RWBY, rarely do we ever get bad first episodes to basically any given volume. Volume 5 even had a really good first episode, one of the best in my opinion even. So this one did have something to live up to. That said, I feel like this one has very little going on despite the 17-minute length of it. The two biggest things I noticed were negatives, but that's not to say my feelings towards the episode are negative. I feel like, and this definitely isn't exclusive to this episode or volume, a lot of the animations felt really over-exaggerated to the point of ridiculousness. It's trying so hard to be anime sometimes, but it feels like it's trying to be a 2D anime despite being animated in 3D, and that's just been a thing with the last few volumes that's been really distracting, including here. It's a bit less obvious here because there's not any action scenes, but RWBY's reaction to Little, the way some of the mice move, and the weird swing of this creature's claw just took me out of it, because it made me wonder what the thought process was behind any of them. The way certain characters sort of move in this really janky, quick, sudden that was something that I always just associated was a Nora thing. That was a great bit of character animation back in the day to sort of demonstrate through visuals that Nora was a far more excitable, bubbly character. But now everyone's doing them, so it feels less like a unique part of Nora. The other thing I noticed was the continuation of serious moments that are way funnier than they intended to be. I know a lot of people have made jokes about the Ruby Rose roleplays a Breaking Bad character moment, and yeah, that was really funny, and I actually forgot about that joke being a thing in the community until I watched the scene. RWBY collapsing just suddenly makes it look like she got hammered on booze back in the Mouse Village, and it took now to catch up. But what really got me laughing was the start. The first person segments of RWBY are fine, there's nothing to write home about, pretty mediocre, nothing wrong with them either. But Neo's first person Markiplier punch on RWBY is the funniest shit of all time, I love that. But I lied, because it's not quite as funny as little 4-foot Neo dropping this absolute alpha male dominance pose at RWBY as they're falling. Please step on! There are things I unironically like though. I think Little's dialogue establishing that in this world, at least their people name themselves off their purpose is fairly alright. It doesn't feel like it's expository or talking down to us. It's a thing you can notice about the character and the culture without it being drawn explicit attention to. I like that. I also quite like the design of this thing and how it moves. It feels like this is what they were trying to capture with the God of Darkness in Volume 7 and the Nuck in That's not right. It feels like this is what they were trying to capture with the God of Darkness in Volume 6 and the Nuck in Volume 4. But this thing gets it far more right than either did. The twitchy, uncomfortable, sudden motions along with the blur works well to make it kind of unsettling. I also think it's a solid enough design overall, and we have no idea what it is, though I'm saying this prior to watching the following episodes that are out at the time of this video coming out. Maybe it's explained, and frankly, I'd probably watch them by the time this video's out. And then there's stuff I'm neutral on. I don't know how I feel about RWBY reuniting again so soon. On one hand, probably for the best, especially because we had a whole volume and a half of them completely apart from each other, and they did nothing with it. But on the other hand, I kind of would have liked to let each character be their own character again and not just satellites revolving around each other. Though on that note, I did like RWBY immediately focusing to see if Yang was okay. But it feels like that only happened because RWBY doesn't have a weapon to fight with, so she couldn't go after the monster herself. And Yang's immediate response of, "You weren't supposed to be here!" sounds both silly and forced, and also cliche, and not in a good way. I just felt like saying, yeah, no shit, dickweed. What actually surprised me was them name-dropping Gamble's Shroud. Like, I gotta imagine for a casual viewer not invested enough in the franchise to know the name of fucking Cardin Winchester's mace, which is called the Executioner, by the way, because he's based on the guy that executed Jean d'Arc. Anyway, must have been a little confusing. This whole scene of them goofily failing to beat some plants, by the way, a great example of over-animation. And honestly, being too goofy and silly. They're in this unknown lost world and confused. They're still suffering the pain of this loss that they face at the end of Volume 8. But anyway, here's a comedic little ditty where they lose to a bush like they're Bob Steve the fucking pumpkin guy. And yeah, I'm struggling to find what else to say. The episode really amounts to RWBY falls down, gets back up again, Weiss and Blake lose trying to touch grass, the three meet up, walk up a mountain, come across Discount Shroud, find Yang, RWBY becomes Walter Texas drug dealer, wakes up, and then Blake steps into the world of Sugar Rush and it ends. I guess we'll have to see how it goes from there to get an idea. I have really nothing much to say about this episode. But I'm interested to see where this goes, and I can't wait to abridge it. Bye!